Hello students, this video will go over the expectations for assignment 2. Assignment 2 deals with decision making. It is the first part of the airport application process that you will develop over this semester, and it will culminate into your final project. So this is one key element of the menu-driven program, which will be called the Airport Application Project. This program itself is a menu-driven program. It deals with the emergency options that are available to you as a pilot who is operating an aircraft. The four options that are available from the main menu in case of emergency are communication failure, engine failure, icing issues, and exiting the application. So as you can see here, the communications failure has only one option. The screen will display, if you click this option or select C, you will see switch to alternate radio. Engine failure has a lot of decision making, and we will go into that in a minute. And in-flight icing has a certain amount of decision making based upon the input, based upon inputting the amount of ice that is visible. Now, as you can see, the engine failure is the primary, involves primary work, and all of these options are an offshoot of the emergency of the engine failure option, which is E. So if you press E, it means you have engine failure, and this leads to a whole bunch of decision making. The first question that you are going to be asked is, are you airborne? And here's an if statement right here. If you're not airborne and your engine is failed, you have no cause for worry, and all the screen will display is have a drink and call a mechanic. However, if you are airborne, this is a more serious condition, then the next question is going to be, is the electrical system working? If the electrical system is not working, then you need to turn on the master switch. There's a display and nothing needs to be done beyond that. However, if the electrical system is working, then it leads us to another question. Is the engine running or is it not running? If the engine is not running, then you check the air temperature, and depending on the temperature, either you display, turn on the carburetor or switch to the fuel tank. However, the engine is not running, then there's another check, which means you're airborne, your engine has stopped running, you're and then you ask, are you over the mountain? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Or are you over water? If you're over water, then either you make an emergency landing or you inflate your life vest because you could be over water. And then the other question is, are you flying at night? If you're flying at night, if you're not flying at night, then make an emergency landing. But if you are at night, then you may have to make an emergency landing. So these are all the options based off of the single engine failure menu option. And as you can see, there is lots of if statements that need to be built and nested into each other in order to provide the correct response in this emergency situation. So I'm going to show you the execution chart. The execution chart for the emergency navigation system. So each one of those diamonds is going to be one function. And as you can see here, the top level function is the emergency decisions menu. And then that function calls other functions to perform all the tasks that you saw inside that diagram there. And these are the levels of nesting that occur in your code. Now, this is called an execution chart because this shows the methods that are called in sequence by the calling function. So here is the emergency decisions menu. It calls the display menu and it also calls input choice. Input choice in turn calls to upper and display menu. So the nesting here shows that uh, the nested function is actually called by the function on the level above it. So 1.2, the function at level 1.2 calls the functions at level 2.1. So the top level function calls display menu, it calls input choice, it calls engine failure. Engine failure in turn calls display, and it calls check electricals. Check electrical calls display and check engine running. Check engine running calls display and check air temperature. Check air temperature in turn calls display, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be provided to you so you can keep this at hand. Now, do you need to write all of these methods? The answer is no. A lot of these methods have actually been written for you, and I will go over the template. Now, I'd like to go over what this program actually looks like when it is completed, so that you will see how this program works. So when you run this program, you see a menu, and this is the exact same menu which the software which, which is which is developed out of the requirements, assignment requirements that was given to you. So here you've got the emergency decisions menu, and you've got all the 4 options: the communication failure, engine failure, in-flight icing, and quit. Now, if I say C, then it says switch to alternate radio. If I say I, then this is the in-flight option menu, and you can see that I'm supposed to enter the range, and if I enter 3, it's going to say you have 20% power, right? Now, one thing I'd like you to note is that this menu is a looping menu, and it will continue to offer these options until you enter Q, and when it says goodbye and leaves the menu. And also note that it allows you to enter uppercase or lowercase options. I'm going to run this one more time to show you that. Here's the program again. Now let's go to the engine failure option. Now enter E, and then it asks the question, are you airborne? Now remember, that was the top level question, and I'm going to say I'm not airborne. If I'm not airborne, then I'm on the ground, so there's nothing to worry. And it says just call the mechanic. You're good. But if I go to engine failure and then I say, yes, I'm airborne, then the whole series of questions is going to start happening. And I can say either yes or no. I might make a mistake and then enter 6 instead of no. As you can see here, input validation is done, and this will keep on looping until I actually enter yes or no. And now the series of questions is going to continue. So this is what, when your program application is completely developed, this is the kind of interactions that you can expect to see. Now the question is this: you may well think, oh, this looks like a complicated program. Am I supposed to write every single thing here? The answer is no. What you do need to do is you will be given a template. And this template consists of 3 files. It consists of the header files, which contains all the functions headers. These are called the prototypes that you will be using in your program. So please do not make any changes to this header file. As you can see, I've included string, and all of the information that needs to be included to compile your program correctly is right here in this emergency decisions header.h. As you can see in these function headers, some of these functions have no input parameters and they return nothing. Some of these functions have got no input parameters, but they return a character. For example, the input choice returns a character. The input yes/no choice returns a character. This method returns the input choice E, C, I, and Q. The input Y, no, yes, no choice returns either the yes or no. Here, as you can see, some of these methods, functions, they actually take in a parameter. So you can send in a message and display will display whatever message that you write. Now here, the main program, this is going to be the common feature for all the programs that we write, is that the main program is going to consist of a single method call. This is the top level method call, which calls the menu. Please do not change this file. What you will see in the third file is the emergency decisions functions.cpp file. Note that this needs to include the emergency decisions header, and all of these three files are going to be given to you, so you should be absolutely good to go. Now, some of the instructions are given here, and as you can see, the emergency decisions menu method that is called here is actually defined for you in the functions file. And this entire menu has already been written for you as a boilerplate code. So you do not need to make any changes. You do need to go through this code to understand how menus are written, how the repetition structure has been used. For example, there's a good demonstration of how the while loop is used here, how the switch statement works, how to call a function and store the result of the return value inside a variable, and so on and so forth. So this is a good way for you to see how the coding needs to be done using functions, using nested functions, use of switch statement, use of while statement, use of nested if statements, and so on. Now, this function has also been written for you. So the display menu function has to. So some of these functions have been written for you just to make it easy for you to grapple with a larger program and get used to handling a larger program as opposed to writing shorter programs that you've been used to in 301. As you can see here, if you watched my video on building conditions, here is a condition using the AND operator. So while the input character is not equal to E and it's not equal to I and not equal to Q and not equal to C, keep looping. This condition building and while statements have been used in order to do input validation, to keep repeating if the user enters an incorrect letter. And here, this one has been written. So now let's go to the ones that have not been written. Now, if you come here, you see, if, for example, the main one was the engine failure. If the user enters E, then this goes to a method call, a function call, which is called engine failure. So let's try to find engine failure here. So this is the engine failure method. Now, the engine failure method should call the check airborne function. How do you do a function call? I'm just going to do it here. All you have to do is check airborne. This will call the function. Now, this function, if you note, the check airborne function, which is right here. Where is check airborne? As you can see, it returns a Boolean value. The check airborne method asks the user, are you airborne? And if the user enters yes, then it returns true. If the user enters no, then it returns false. Now this true or false is going to be returned right here. We have a choice of using that return value or not using that return value. So we can do one of two things. Either we can say if check airborne, i.e., if this returns true, then call the check electricals function. Otherwise, just display call mechanic. You could do this, or you could do it another way too. You could declare a Boolean variable and say Boolean answer, And you could say answer equals whatever check airborne returns. And then you can say if answer equals true, call the check electricals function, else call else. Else display call mechanic. You may need to add some new line characters here, which you can do inside a string if you'd like to have a new line character. So this is also a way of introducing to you a Boolean variable which can hold the value true or false, and you can use the Boolean variable to check if a condition is true or a condition is false. I'm going to delete this right now because this is something that I will expect you to do. So call the check airborne function. Now you know how to do that. If it returns true, call the check electrical function. Otherwise, call display with this message. So this is the kind of, now this mesh, so nothing to be done with this method. So all you need to do is scan all of those methods which have got the triple star and follow the directions to complete the code. So they are, I'm just going to count this for you. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 methods that you need to complete in functions that you need to complete in order to complete this assignment. Many of them are very repetitive. It just says if the answer is yes, call this function, otherwise call another function. If the get the input choice from the user, store it in a character variable. If the answer is yes, do one thing. If the answer is no, do another thing. Now remember, whenever you're checking if something is equal to, you do need to use the double equal to. So you're going to be doing something like if character equal to double equal to y. So keep in mind the relational operators that are appropriate at every step. And once you're done with that, I'm just going to run the template to show you that the template shell is actually a working, right? It's actually a working shell, but when you fill in all of those methods, then you will be able to execute. Currently, it doesn't do anything. You see, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't offer you all of those options because the methods still have not been completely defined. But when you do that, your assignment will be complete and you should be able to test your program and copy and paste a screenshot of the tests as given in your assignment statement. You see all of those tests. The 3 tests that are given here is first enter E, and then enter E, and then enter yes, and then enter no. So the \n is for the enter. E, hit the enter, hit Y, and then hit yes, and then you should see turn on the master switch. So take a screenshot of the test and use the testing sequences that have been given here and paste them into a document and submit the document along with your code files.